Artist and graphic designer G. Lee has garnered accolades globally for his work with brands, but it's his personal projects that have shown his mastery. Join us for a conversation about what creativity means to him. So I always start the show with the question, what do you believe?
I believe many things, but I believe in the transformative power of personal projects.
Okay. Transformation. What about transformation speaks to you?
Transformation is life. It's what life is about. It's constantly changing for good and bad. But transformative in this context of personal projects, for me, I'm talking about obviously really amazing, positive transformations.
Okay. So can you, when you say your projects are transformative, so they transform you, and what's their effect?
Well, my projects, and I'm not talking about professional projects, I'm talking about specifically personal projects, have changed my life tremendously for many years. And it has opened amazing opportunities. It has opened possibilities for professional work, meeting people, changing lives of my families and friends, my own life. So there's a lot of aspect of this project and personal projects.
Because the thing is, the nugget for me is joy.
Mm-hmm.
When I see your projects, and I'm very familiar with your projects because I'm a fan and a friend, but when I see something you've done, you create joy. You spread an infectious vibe. And to me, when I think of transformation, it's like, yes, it's transformed your life, but it also transforms everyone else's life.
Yes, I think joy is a big part of doing personal projects because we are driven to work on our personal projects because for many reasons. I think for the most part, because people want to express themselves or want to bring purpose to their life, or they want to change something in their lives that they're not happy about. There are many reasons, but I think the moment I'm working on my own personal project, the first immediate effect, a positive effect, is that it brings me joy because I am using my ideas, I'm using my body, I'm focusing my energy into doing something that's important to me, which is not often the case when we are spending time working on professional projects because often we're doing it as a job and we're doing it to solve other people's problem. But in this case, when I'm working on my personal project, it's really about fulfilling my desire, fulfilling my wishes. And the first feeling that comes out of this experience is joy. It's a pleasure because I'm actually dedicating my energy to do something that's important to me.
Yeah. I mean, what I've noticed in your work is a lot of use of letters and symbols, and you create another way of looking at letters. You transform, the alphabet, and you transform what we think we see into something that is a statement unto itself.
Yes. Well, I think because I come from design background and also advertising background, I am interested and I'm naturally interested and driven towards typography and design and communication in general. Um, I remember when I first did my typography project called Word as Image, was at my art school. And it was one of the very first assignment in the typography class. And the whole idea was to take letters that we see as a mundane thing that we've gotten so used to and transform the shapes of letters as shape of other things. You know, so letter A can become the top of a mountain with the snow on top of it, or letter B could become breasts,
Mm.
or letter D could be smiley face on the side. Letter I can become a person. So it really, the whole assignment was designed to encourage students to see letters as shapes with personalities, and you can actually take these letters and sort of hack the meaning of the letter to convey something else visually. And that's that's something that I do a lot in my work, which is the idea of hacking, taking what exists and shifting something and completely changing the meaning of this original intent of that object or of that thing. It's a very efficient way of working for me because, in a way, it's you're taking something that what other people have done and spent a lot of time developing, and here comes that, I come and then just by shifting something really small, it actually changed something completely, and there's already also a reference point. People already recognize that thing, that letter or that shape and form as a universal thing. So I don't have to explain much because they already know the meaning behind those things. So it's a very efficient and powerful way of working that I enjoy.
And it's incredibly, I mean, it's activism. It's that's your form of, when I see your work, it's your form of activism and activating people in the messages that you convey.
Well, activism can take on many different meanings. I think for most part, people understand activism as a political and social meaning, which I think some of my projects have that intent. But many times, a lot of my work is not political, but it's activism as the way you describe it is activating people to think differently about
Yeah.
things that we take for granted, letters or advertisement, or just the mundane. We just get used to things so much, um, from relationships to our comfort to our daily lives. That's one characteristic of humans, that we tend to adapt really well to reality and get used to our situation. So one of my purposes in things that I do is to provoke people to rethink or to re-examine their mundane, the usual things that they have become so accustomed to.
Yeah. Oh, you definitely do. It's incredible, especially right now. There's so much going on in the world. I'm just curious how, I mean, on a personal level, and a professional level, how has this impacted you at this time?
Well, it impacted me tremendously, as I'm sure has impacted everyone tremendously and profoundly. I have a 5-year-old and 10-month-old baby, and it's very challenging to be taking care of them all the time, but also it's tremendous privilege to be able to spend so much time with them. Because without this, I would not be spending so much time, literally every day,
Mm.
24 hours a day, seeing every moment of their life, going through both good and bad and hard and joyful. I try to focus on the positive sides of things, especially when I'm feeling not so great. And those are the things that I focus, that are how privileged I am to be able to spend time with my family, to be healthy, to not worry about having, food or shelter or
Yeah.
a job, because I know that's not the case for lots of people around the world. So it really is impacting me great in a great deal. But also, it also gives me more space to think about my own self and how I can express myself. And I think it's an amazing time for not only for me, but for anyone who is curious and who is creatively driven
Yes.
to create things and to make things that matters for them, that hopefully will bring change in their lives and lives of others.
Absolutely. I'd love to explore that more in terms of creating during this time. I can relate because, I had this podcast. I started it in December, but really, when I partnered up with Francesca, we really started to create more and at a higher frequency, and really got serious about it. And we felt like it was the right time, to create. So I'm curious if you could speak to, if people are feeling that need to create. I mean, it's sometimes hard because the world is so overwhelming and it can be very bleak at so many moments, currently. But how do you find your inspiration to sort of overcome that? And what is there any advice that you could give people who really are wanting to break out and create?
Yeah, that struggle is real. It's real for, I think, for everyone, or at least most of people. And it's real for me also. It's a constant struggle for me to focus on doing my project, creating stuff. Because there's always, I mean, first of all, it's exhausting to be going through this pandemic. Uh,
Yeah.
it's exhausting to be in the one, at home all the time, to not to live the same thing again and again. To especially for people like me who have young children, it's exhausting because I'm waking up, 5:30 every morning, and it's a constant caretaking of them. And 10-month and 5-year-old have their own complexities, and their needs. And when the evening comes, it's after dinner and they're in bed. Big part of me wants to just chill out and maybe watch some Netflix and drink wine,
Yeah.
and just zone out and not think because I'm so exhausted.
Right.
But I think right now the time that we're living is so unique, with the pandemic, the Black Lives Matter, the political atmosphere. The election that's coming up in November is probably the most important election ever in generations for the world.
Mm.
And everything just feels very urgent to me, from all those things. And I cannot, or I would not go out on the street to protest, because of my young ones, and I don't want to put myself at the risk to be sick. But I admire them, and since I cannot be on the street with them, although I really want to, I feel like I have to do something else. I have to express myself, even if it's creating posters that people can download and use it if they want to, if it's about creating graphics that express how I'm feeling, throughout these complex issues. Just expressing myself on these issues helps me, and hopefully will um, make others look at it and help them form opinions or reflect or smile.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you just recently created an emoji.
Well, I create lots of emojis because that's sort of a simple hack that I do because everybody know what emojis are, and I like to create new ones or taking existing emojis and transforming them into something else. But I think you're referring to, well, recently I've done two emoji related projects. One is I've created COVID specific emojis,
Yeah.
which shows like, a roll of toilet paper that's empty, or two people social distancing. I don't remember the other one, but there were like 12 of them. And I've done also
You did a kneeling. You did a kneeling.
the kneeling or giving a knee to protest police brutality
Yes.
emoji, and both got picked up by press, and I was very excited to make them and share them with the world.
Mm. So when you're at this moment, right? You're about to, you get the feeling, okay, I want to do something. I mean, is it something that is it an idea that you have in the shower that comes to you, or is it something that you sit down specifically and then you create? I mean, how does it work for you? Being creative.
Well, I think each project is different. So, I have at any given time, I have several projects happening at the same time. This is a project that I've created for myself, and I can roughly categorize them into short, medium, and long-term projects. So short-term projects are usually things that I can do with, like less than half an hour. Medium-term projects are, things that take a few days or weeks. And long-term projects are things that will take months or years. It's important for me to have these multiple projects because I feel like I am constantly working on things, and I don't want to put all my eggs into one basket. Like, let's say, like, I want to create this app, and that's one thing I'm gonna do. And what if that doesn't go well? Or what if that doesn't get to launch? So I feel like I would have spent all this time for something that I would feel disappointed in the end.
Right.
So having those different projects are very helpful to me. So, for instance, the short-term projects, the way I come up with them are usually there are, I think, a couple of ways I think about them. One is my reaction to current events. So, I read news and I see things, right? That how can I address this thing through my design or creative expression? How can I distill that complex issue as a symbol or emoji or graphic or photos? And it's almost, I think I learned this sort of strategy by doing editorial pieces for newspaper. So often, let's say New York Times or New Yorker would email me and say, hey, there's this piece of news and you have 24 hours to come up with an illustration for that. So that's the brief. And, it's a very quick, intense process. So you think about, okay, let's say I'm going to talk about the last Instagram post that I just shared. The whole, the topic is about people not wearing masks.
Yeah.
I can do all kinds of things. I've been thinking about this for weeks because it really bothers me when I see people who are not wearing masks and there are news about that, and people who are adamant about not wearing. It becomes like a political position, not wearing a mask, which I think is absolutely disrespectful and actually dangerous. Um, so so that's the brief. Then I think, okay, what can I do? And I go through lots of different things in my mind. Should I show them as like bad people, or um, should I take existing imagery and twist them, like, like should I have like a Empire, Statue of Liberty wearing a mask? I mean, there's all this sort of cliches, ideas that come through my mind, and finally I came up with this idea of creating Venn diagram of 3 circles, and the one circle is ignorant, the second circle is selfish, the third circle is asshole, and in the middle is no mask. And actually that idea actually came from a previous idea that I had shared on Instagram, which was, I was really bothered by all lives matter, like people who say all lives matter. And I came to the conclusion that these are not people who are, have good intent and who really cares about all lives matter. I came to the conclusion these are ignorant, racist asshole who actually say those things, or it's 99% of the time. So I did the same thing with the 3 Venn diagram: ignorant, racist, asshole. In the middle, there's all life matters. And so I actually created the second Venn diagram for the no mask, and I saw, okay, there's a similarity between these 2 groups, right? The only thing being different is the racist and selfish. And I realized, well, these are probably the same people, which I think is a huge contradiction, because if they're so adamant about all lives matter, they should be the ones really be wearing the mask, right? But they're not. So that was the sort of the interesting connection that I found at the time. Oh my God, like I did the 2 Venn diagrams, but then there is a commonality between the 2. So I ended up sharing both Venn diagram at the same time. So that's sort of the process. Like another example is the whole on Jemima. I don't know how you pronounce that.
Yes.
Is it Jemima or Jemima?
Jemima.
Jemima. I didn't grow up in the U.S., so I don't know this product. Aunt Jemima and Uncle Ben.
Yeah.
Logos, being removed because of the whole racist background, and the brands are participating in this whole process of
reviewing
the history. So that was the brief for me. Okay, this is a really interesting story that these brands are doing.
Yeah.
So what can I do to actually, in one simple image, can tell the story? So what I did was I ended up making the 2 characters, Uncle Ben and Aunt Jemima, with the fist up, and then I wrote freedom.
Yes.
So
just as if they were in the same. Yeah, it was brilliant.
Yeah, exactly. So those are the things those are the approaches that I take on. Okay, I give myself the brief on current events. How can I actually come up with an image? But then that's one very specific kind of project that I do. There are other things. For instance, I think like every curious person, I'm always observing things. Always, right? Observing people, observing nature, observing life in the city, because I'm just curious. And I like to. I've done a few watch and clock projects, and it's a good project for me to tackle because there's a set parameters in the clock and the watch. There's a phase, it's round, there's 12 hours, and there are hands, and I can sort of take those elements and hack it and create something totally different. So I'm interested in mindfulness, although I have not practiced yoga, meditation and yoga in years. but I like the concept of mindfulness. And I wanted to create a watch that just said now without any hand, right? So like, oh, okay, that's because I've actually have done that because I painted on my wrist like with a marker now, and then I just
Yeah.
as a joke I wore that because it's like it's about being in the moment, all
Right.
that mindfulness things. So okay, maybe like after drawing it, so maybe I can actually make a watch with now and then sell it, as a kind of a fun object for people to wear. So I went on Google and I Googled like now watch just to make sure
Sure.
someone has done it. And unfortunately, someone had done that.
Wow.
Actually, a couple of people have done it, and they're selling it, and like
Yeah, but
celebrities
didn't do it
wearing.
as cool as you would have done it. So,
So I was like, oh damn, like too late. So and then okay, so I started thinking, okay, like how can I evolve this idea to not be this idea, but still capture the intent of my original thought.
Yeah.
And these are ideas that I think about at night before going to bed because I'm trying to constantly, solve this problem. Okay, I want to express, be in the moment through a watch because I believe a watch is basically an accessory, it's like a jewelry because nobody needs a watch nowadays because everybody has a cell phone, right? You can see what time it is. So watch has really become a jewelry. So
Yeah.
how can I actually repurpose the watch? So and then I started thinking about being in the moment and about like breathing because when you're meditating, you're being in the moment, the first thing is just to focus on your breath, right? It's like inhaling and exhaling. And then suddenly I thought about the idea of, okay, what if I made a watch about how, that actually helped you breathe. So then the idea became, well, I can actually take a watch, remove the hour and minute hand and just keep the second hand. And then instead of the numbers, you would have inhale and exhale. So you would, the whole thing became then, okay, it's actually something practical because in many moments throughout the day, you have that moment when you're so aggravated or nervous or angry because you're fighting with your spouse or because you've gotten into an argument with somebody in the traffic or you've gotten really annoying email.
Yeah.
So then the first thing you can do is actually, look at the watch and then breathe, inhale and exhale for a minute. So I thought that was actually a great idea, actually much better than the Now Watch, which is basically a gimmick. But now this one actually has a real purpose, and I would actually, this is the one watch I'll be wearing. I want this. So then I had to find, okay, how can I make this into a real product? Ended up finding a colleague at work who has done watches, and we agreed that we're going to do 50-50. He's going to be the producer, I'm going to be the designers, and we're in the process of making this watch into a product, and it's been several months. So that's sort of the midterm projects, but it's a different way of coming up with an idea because it's not like a current event, but it's about observing my reality, my life, and trying to solve a problem, which I think is the birth of many great ideas, when you come up with all kinds of different inventions and objects for home that, you see, okay, there's a need for this thing and nobody has made it. So I'm going to be the first one to do it.
Interesting. So it's like a progression in your work, right? For things to come off the page and into objects. It's interesting.
That's exactly, but that's just one kind of another kind of project, which is identifying a problem and trying to solve that problem either through a product or through a poster or through app, whatever that is, a game, and just making it. For me, I've been giving many talks about on this theme, transformative power personal projects, because I have benefited so much doing my projects, which transformed my life tremendously. So I feel like I should share my story, and hopefully people will feel encouraged to focus on working on their own projects. And I believe anyone can do it. Doesn't matter if you have a training in creative field, if you're a designer or writer, anyone who is curious is creative and
Yeah.
has potential to make things. Anybody, especially nowadays with technology, social media, and Kickstarter and eBay. I mean, the only thing that's stopping you from making this is you. So I feel time is really the best time to be creative. But one thing that I really focus, I always end my talk with this one thought, which is ideas are nothing, doing is everything.
Yes.
Because I think it's really easy, sometimes fun, to come up with an idea. Anybody has a great idea. Oh my God, like I wish there was this thing. Oh, wouldn't it be a great idea to make a movie about this, or make an app about that thing, or creating this kind of objects. Anyone can come up with an idea to actually turn that idea into action, to actually start and finish. That is a hard part. And that's why I really focus on myself, and when I talk about this, hopefully to others, that really ideas are nothing. You gotta do it. You gotta make it happen.
Yeah, I'm curious actually, in your experience, what has been the most difficult part of taking an idea and creating it and making it into something? I mean, whether it's an app or whatever it is. I mean, what part of the process do you think is the most difficult after you've come up with the idea?
Well, there are many difficult things, and I think each project has its own challenge and its own difficulty. So I think I can, let's divide this project into two categories. One is one project that I'm doing by myself, like the 3D alphabet or the bubble project, where I put stickers in the shape of speech bubble on top of advertisement, or the word as image. These are projects that I am doing on my own, on my free time. In these projects, I think the most difficult thing is starting, and starting is the most difficult thing, because I would have a thought, and then maybe I'll just lose a thought, or I'll get excited about it, but then like I get distracted because I'm too busy.
Right.
I am, lazy, and then I start questioning.
Yeah, no, do you have like a sticky factor? Like if you keep thinking about something for like 5 days, then you have to do it? Is there like a sticky factor,
My sticky factor is just doing it as soon as possible.
Okay.
Because more time I wait, it's the less enthusiasm I will have. I think there's something about the initial intuition, the aha moment.
Yeah.
And then more time it passes, and then you have the voice in your mind that start questioning, just saying, is that really a good idea? Is it worth putting my effort? Forget it. I'm just gonna watch some Netflix video. So I think that's what happens most often to me, and I think to others. So my focus is just, I'm gonna just start doing it right away. So those are the things the project that I'm working on by myself, and then there's other projects that are working with other people, which I think has a whole different set of challenges. In a way, it's harder to work with other people, because then you have to collaborate, you have to negotiate, you have to listen and really acknowledge and also meet their needs and sometimes disagree. And there's a lot of things that come in place. So the bigger the group, more challenging it is. That's why I really admire filmmakers, because it involves hundreds of people sometimes.
Yes.
So I think the hardest thing when I'm working with on a project that involves other people is the momentum, because it's easy to bring people together. Like you have this excitement. It's like, okay, like guys, like I have this idea, we can do this thing together, and everybody's excited to come for the first meeting. Like blah 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 blah, everybody chatting. It's okay. I'm gonna do this. The next step, agenda, blah blah blah. And then because it's a self-initiated idea, and often is not, the money is not immediately available or involved, right? The payoff is like a long-term thing. Then people start getting distracted, and people start working on other things and other priorities, and they go on vacations, and there's emergency at work, and then the meeting gets postponed. And then the moment you start losing the momentum, it's kind of the end of the project. So I think the momentum, I think, is very important. So when I'm working with other people, I really try to emphasize that momentum part. If I feel like my partner hasn't responded in a week, then I have to make a great effort to message or email and say, hey, like what happened to that drawing for the watch that we're supposed to receive from the manufacturer? Like, have you checked?
Right.
So I'm constantly checking so that we're not losing momentum. Because if you lose the momentum, if they lose the momentum, I lose the momentum, that's the end of the project.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you find, I mean, it's important to maybe have that conversation and say, let's try to check each other. If at any point we feel that there's a moment where one person's lapsing out, and, do you ever have that conversation of like, hey, let's do a huddle when we feel like that's happening, get together and kind of pull each other up?
We always do that in the beginning. I always do that. Hey guys, like, let's really push each other. Let's make sure that, like, don't get offended if I push you hard and say, oh yeah, please do that. I love that. I'm going to do the same. We always do that in the beginning, but then even then,
Yeah.
it's people, and myself included, ended up just drifting away. So it's then I have to constantly remind myself, okay, like he hasn't responded to my email or message in a week, and I have to get back to him as soon as possible.
Yeah. Yes, I understand. I mean, it is difficult, and I would agree with that. It is, momentum, passion for it, for sure. Curious, just, at this point in time, at the moment, at the stage that we're in, and where you are, in your career, which has been illustrious and fantastic. I mean, you've done so many incredible things. In terms of the future, how important, because I feel like the answer is, I know where you're going to go with this, but creativity in the future, talk to us about that in terms of how we can make a change in this world. I mean, you're already doing that with your work, but I mean, I just see it as such a way to really affect change in a way that is monumental,
Yeah, well, I think we'll need creativity more than ever in the future.
Yes.
Because the problem that we're trying to solve are so humongous, and it can really wipe out everyone as a civilization. We're talking about the next 20, 30 years. If you're lucky, 50, 60 years. So we'll need more creativity than ever, because we cannot really rely on the government to do the work for us, because obviously that's not happening. So we'll need creativity more than ever, but I think it's a great time to be creative, as I was saying earlier, because of technology, for good and bad. It really levels the playing field for everyone. right? So it doesn't matter how young, how poor, how rich, how influential or not you are.
Mm.
As long as you have access to internet and a phone, you can start a revolution. You can come up with with an idea that can change the world, or you can become famous, whatever your purpose is. Greta Thunberg,
Yes.
she started, holding a sign in a public square. That's how she started. She was she was just a high school student.
Right.
So I think that's really for me the hope, and where I find um, the positive aspect of creativity, because the young people who are going to be the future, who are going to have to work hard by because they inherited this crap from older generations. They are the ones who will use their creativity and technology to change the world, and it's gonna be uh, that's gonna determine the future of humanity in the next 100 years.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. Gee, thank you so much. I mean, this has been an incredible conversation. I'm so honored.
It's always nice talking to you, Andrea.
Thank you so much.